I'm really excited about this next panel. It's going to be phenomenal. We are talking to founders about how to bring the company from vision to the finish line. So welcome everybody to the next panelists of the show.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me on the microphone? Okay, I hear myself now. All right, everybody come on up, take a seat. Have enough seats? Okay, great. Hello, everyone. I'm Madison Brodsky, and I'm moderating your panel today for the founder journey, going from the vision to the finish line. And I have 4 amazing founders joining me on the stage. Real quick, let's kind of go through, give a little 10-second elevator pitch of who you are and what your company is.
Shall I start?
Go ahead.
Hey, everyone. I'm Shiri Avnery, and I'm president and co-founder of Thistle. And we are on a mission to make it easy for everyone to get and stay healthy while improving the sustainability of the food system. And we do this by delivering delicious, healthy, plant-based and plant-forward meals to customer doorsteps.
I'm Neha Kumar, and I'm the co-founder and COO of Full Glass Wine, and we are a fast-growing direct-to-consumer wine company, and we're growing predominantly through M&A.
Hey everybody, my name is Jake Liu. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Outer. We're a Santa Monica-based outdoor living brand. You might know us by our premium patio furniture, as well as our showroom network in people's backyards. And glad to be here. Thank you.
Hi. Craig Dubitsky, Capricorn. Just flew in from the East Coast a few minutes ago, so if I'm a little pokey, you'll understand. I'm sure other people stayed up pretty late last night as well. Let's see, other than Capricorn. Entrepreneur, founder, co-founder, CEO of a new company called Happy, and we make coffee. And before that, I was the founder of a company called Hello, an oral care brand. And before that, co-founder of a company called EOS, which made women's personal care, a little spherical-shaped lip balm. And before that, I was a founding board member and led the original investment in Method Products, a household cleaning products and personal care brand.
A busy man, and we're so glad you made it back to LA just in time. Shiri, we're going to start off with you. What was the moment that made you turn your insight about plant-based diets into a full plan for business?
Yeah, it's a great question. So for me, at the time I was in grad school, I was pursuing a PhD in environmental science, looking at the intersection of the food system and our environment. And I remember I was at a conference with a bunch of my colleagues and professors that featured very prominently the heavy toll that our demand for meat takes on our planet. And the moment actually came after this conference, which was we all went out to dinner to share a meal. And all of us there who had such passion and knowledge about these issues, yet not a single one of us, including myself, I wasn't vegan at the time, ordered a meal that was plant-based. And for me, that really struck me because there we were, passionate, informed. We had access to plant-based meals. It was convenient and right in front of us. The meal was comped. It wasn't an affordability issue. And yet we were in this moment where we were being asked to sacrifice. We thought it wouldn't taste as good. And that moment stuck in my head and made me realize that if we don't address this, if we don't make plants as irresistible as any other meals you can find, we weren't going to be able to solve this challenge. And that's a big part of what drove me to start Thistle.
But you have a scientific background, correct?
Yes,
so
I
how
do.
did that influence your decision, and how did that help progress your decisions in this company?
Yeah, so being really deep in the literature, one thing that really struck me was the juxtaposition between the types of solutions that got a lot of attention in the media or in policy circles versus those that the scientists say would be most impactful. And that solution, hands down is, hey, let's eat less meat. You could reduce your greenhouse gas emissions by 75%. You could reduce deforestation by about that same amount. You could reduce your water consumption by 50%. But a lot of the solutions in the policy circles were really around things like, food miles, organics, and those things are important, but I would say secondary issues to this big elephant in the room. And so that struck with me. I wanted to have our company be centered around a solution that was rooted in science and that would attack the most impactful solution first.
Beautifully well said. Okay, going from food into wine. Full Glass Wine is scaling so fast. Congratulations on all of the success there.
Thank you.
How do you balance rapid growth like that with your core values?
You know, that's really interesting. I don't actually believe there's any such thing as balance in any way, shape, or form, and I think a lot of people probably agree with me on that. But it's about really trying to force prioritize the things that are the most important to us. And so, you know, we ended up putting this company together in a very interesting fashion. So just so everybody in here knows also, so we've grown very, very fast. We've been around for about 16, 17 months. We've completed 6 acquisitions to date in a very short period of time. And the truth here is that our number one focus has been from the beginning, and it is now, ensuring that we're managing out the process for the end consumer. And that's where our number one focus is. So when you really focus in on that, making sure that we can get, you know, the quickest shipments to the customers, right? So one of the first things we would do is when we're acquiring a company is we get them all into our warehouses. We get them onto one tech stack. We move them into 3 warehouses so that we can quickly get the product over to the customers as quickly as possible, right? So really staying focused on the priorities from that standpoint for us has been very helpful. But balance is very, very challenging and hard.
I feel like the balance comes with the team that you surround yourself with. Is that a big part of the company and the success that you've seen so far?
That's everything. And that is such a great question. My co-founder and I actually know each other for a very, very long time. I used to work with him at one of his previous companies. And we stopped working together about 8 years ago or so. And every once or twice a year, we'd meet up for a drink, and I would tell him, we're going to work again together one day. And he would laugh. And I'm like, no, really, we will. And here we are. And it's just so interesting and serendipitous how things come together. Our head of data analytics worked with me before, and we also went to grad school together. Our chief of staff went to grad school, and we were all in the same class. And having a good core group of people makes things in the startup space not only better, but it also makes it fun. When you're in the trenches, which you will be in the startup space, when you have people that are there with you in it to win it, it's a big deal. My controller, it's so funny. Her daughter's heard me on Zoom so many times. Her daughter is 11 years old. Her daughter does roller skating championships. It's like a thing. It's very competitive. And she's heard me on Zoom calls, and I didn't know this. So one time my controller overheard her daughter talking to her other teammates and saying, but are you in it to win it? Really, are you in it to win it? And she had heard me asking my controller that. And so having the right people truly is everything.
That passion shines through, which moves on to Jake. Having passion and innovation, how do you ensure through that you're keeping up with sustainability and quality in your product?
So I think that's a very good question. It's almost like he did a lot of research on our company because I'm pretty sure when we first launched about 5 years ago, one of our first ads was, we are the most innovative, high quality, sustainable, comfortable. Okay, the ad copy was absolutely terrible, but that was the message. And as a company, we really wanted to keep all 4 attributes, innovation, quality, sustainability, and comfort as part of quality. And I think the good news here is that, the question is like, how do you balance innovation with quality and sustainability? The good news is that those are not exclusive. I think, the exclusion here is like, if you want to do something that's better, faster, or cheaper, those are exclusive, right? You have to pick maybe 1 or 2 at most. And so we decide to sacrifice time and cost. So basically, our products are premium. Our AOV is $6,000. We don't really compromise on quality at all. On sustainability, that was the reason my co-founder joined me in the first place. I couldn't have poached him from his, head of design job at Pottery Barn if I didn't commit to building a sustainable company with him. And so that's not something that we were willing to sacrifice. And then on innovation, we actually have a Slack channel, and the name of the channel is Seinfeld Moment. And I mean, some of you already get the idea. So my co-founder, Terry, he's a big fan of Seinfeld. And then basically in Seinfeld, he always starts the show with a monologue, like, have you ever noticed? And it's like some like really, nuanced thing in your life. And everybody's like, yeah, I really relate to that. And so the purpose of the channel is to basically inspire all of our teammates to kind of discover and uncover issues they run into when they, during their everyday lives. And so when you're, for example, the most recent example is like one of our colleagues came back from vacation in Hawaii, and she's like, have you ever noticed all the like pool loungers next to the pool? You're either sitting too upright or like and it's like it's never comfortable. You have to like stand up and adjust. So we never say you have to come up with a solution, just the observation and the problem, and we'll work on the solution. And so to solve that problem, we came up with a product. It's called Infinity Chase. You can search for Outer Infinity Chase. But basically, we've introduced like a gas spring system where it's kind of like a car in the 90s where you can like pull a lever, and you can adjust the back to infinite degrees, right? And no one in our industry has ever done that. I don't know why, but
Wow, talk about innovation, right?
the cost of that is time. So that took us over a year to develop, right? And so, we're in it for the long haul. It's a premium brand, it's a lifestyle brand. We've raised a bunch of venture capital. So the presumption is that we have to grow quickly and go public. But thankfully, everybody, the board, the investors are aligned that we're building for the long haul. And so if that is removed from the equation, we can do quality, sustainability, and innovation.
It's really interesting that so far with the three of you, you've all come to similar points in terms of building a solid team around you who's actually passionate about the product that you're producing, which I think is a good takeaway so far today. Craig, you've built so many successful brands, so you've seen this time and time again. How do you transform everyday items like coffee, for example, into something that keeps the process joyful and exciting for you and your team?
Let's see. Sleep deprived me is going to cut right to the chase and try not to sound too tired or redundant, but it is team. And I'm going to extend the notion of team to a word that I really love to use and a word that I'm allergic to. So I'm allergic to the word consumer. We're people. We happen to consume things. As soon as you start to label people, like that's our target, targets get shot at, right? As soon as you label people, you create distance. It's kind of the opposite of what you want to do. You want to create proximity, not distance. So we're obsessed with people. I'm obsessed with people. And I think people, whether it's people on the team, and in the case of Happy, of course we call ourselves the Happy Fam because we're tight. Most of us have worked together before. So when I started Hello, this oral care brand, we were acquired by Colgate in 2020, and I was very fortunate to be able to liberate my entire founding team and bring them over to Happy, which is pretty cool. So we love each other, but it's this obsession with people and knowing that people write their narratives through their stuff, and we're obsessed with giving them better stuff. And coffee's a commodity, right? Like you hear brands talk about mountain-grown coffee. There's no celestial coffee. There's no hydroponic coffee. No joke, I was pitched by a brand that said, "You're not gonna believe it, we have plant-based coffee." And I was like, coffee's a plant, right? Yeah, but we make it in a lab and it's from plants. I'm like, it's a plant. It starts out as a plant. Anyway, I digress. So knowing that coffee's a commodity, we had this interesting idea that people are unique. All these brands go out of their way to say how unique their coffee is and how special their coffee is. What if we actually focused on people? People aren't a commodity. People are unique and special. We have the best coffee, and I'm happy to talk to you guys all about how awesome the coffee is if you want. But the real magic isn't in the coffee. Of course, it's exceptional coffee, seriously delicious coffee. But it's all people. So not consumers, not drinkers, people. And remove the labels, and magic can happen.
That was a great speech for being sleep deprived. I think you just inspired every single person.
We make products
in this
with
room.
caffeine. Just saying.
Your coffee's working. That's what I'm going to say there. All right, Shiri, you co-founded your company with your partner. Tell me about that experience. Who is in charge of what, and how you bring that passion of working together to your company?
Yeah, it's funny. I say that we've done this now for 11 years together, and somehow we're still married after that 11 years. And I think one of the reasons is because we're actually very different people. We have different strengths and weaknesses, and we complement each other in I think, the best way that we possibly could. And one of the ways that we brought that to the team is just that recognition, that respect for how different we are, the different strengths we have, different ways of working, and how that can lead to a whole that's greater than the sum of its parts. We allowed that to permeate in terms of how we hire, what we look for in our team. And we try to find a really well-balanced team with a lot of diverse perspectives, for example. There's a lot of trust in our team just by being with your partner, and that leads to an organization that I think really values transparency and openness, and just bringing your authentic self to work. And I think something that Neha hit on is, the fun factor is you got to be able to have fun and to laugh, especially when you're in the trenches, and bring that lightness to work. And I think that's a big part of what we've been able to do together.
So beautiful. Great lesson to learn. We've talked about people, not consumers. We've talked about your team. Neha, moving on, can you touch on the daunting task of working with investors and keeping that straightforward?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm going to piggyback a little bit on what he said as well, Craig, right? It's also the label of calling them investors, right? Mm-hmm. They're our partners. And when you look at them as partners and you keep them in the loop and you go to them with conversations, it makes such a big difference. So we're moving very, very fast. Again, we've done a lot of acquisitions very quickly. I talk to my investors, partners, on a very, very regular basis, multiple times a week. Because we always need more capital, right? So it's a fun place to be. But they really are our partners. And they'll actually come to the table with us with potential solutions. They'll come to us with ideas. And we're very fortunate that we have these very great partners with us at the table, because there's a lot of times, and I know a lot of you guys who are founders or even just at the top of your game, it can get very lonely. Right? I don't have the opportunity. I have a co-founder, which is phenomenal, but I can't go and say things to my employees. We have about 70 employees now, and I can't say I'm having a hard day, right? I can't say I'm in the middle of a transaction, I'm doing something, and I'm not sure right now if I want to acknowledge the great things that happen at the same time or the challenges I'm having. Because a lot of people hear that with the founder life, you have a good day and a bad day. There's a lot of times where I have a good moment and a bad moment at the exact same time, and I actually just don't know how to feel, right? And having great partners with us at the table, for me, it's been everything. Because I have someone else to go to as a sounding board to give me their thoughts, to help me think through things, which has been very, very helpful. Now, you do have to manage those relationships, just as if you were managing upwards with the CEO or anyone else if you're at a job. So you do want to manage those things. But the key thing for me has been being transparent about what I'm trying to accomplish. Because as long as I'm transparent about what I'm trying to accomplish, the ultimate goal or the ultimate goals that I have, now I can keep them in the loop along the way. And the truth is, sometimes I hear other founders say, well, I don't want to tell, my partners, my investors, everything, or go through all this stuff with them. You don't have to spotlight everything all the time. But we're moving so fast that being transparent to me is just everything, because I can't keep other things straight in my head if I am not upfront about items.
I also think that's a great opportunity for them to maybe step in and help in issues that you might be scared to share about. Jake, can you tell us an example of how you have learned through building this company to build those strong relationships with partners?
Piggybacking maybe from an investor's standpoint, one tactical thing I've learned over the years is during board meetings, which I'm sure many of you have to do at least once a quarter or at least once a year. I think it's better to come up with a plan and not to come up with the questions to the board members, right? So one concrete example is Outer wants to get into hospitality. We want to provide Andas with the Infinity Chaise Lounger that we just released, right? The kind of the entrepreneur that's 10 years younger. When I was building my first company, I would go to my board and say should we do this, right? And this time around, I'm like, okay, I've done all this modeling. This is what we should do. This is the resource I need. We want to do this. What do you think? And I think that kind of changes the dynamic of the board meeting a lot, and the investors can participate in like solving that issue and actually helping you figure out the funding, the tactics, talent, whatever, instead of like debating, whether you should do it or not. So that's one like concrete example of how to kind of like expectation manage, your board and your investors. Like Neha, I talk with my investors almost daily. We raised our first round of venture capital maybe 5 years ago. Last round we raised 2 years ago. We just turned profitable, so thankfully no more like fundraising pressure. But I talk to my board members and my investors both overseas, which is like in a complete different time zone, and here day in day out. On WhatsApp, on WeChat, on on text, on email. And I think the continuous conversation with your investors and telling them, kind of like the good and the bad. To your point, being transparent and being real time about information, not just like, the quarterly check-in and they're surprised with something. I think that's been really, really helpful. In many cases, over the course of the last few years, they proactively offer to invest more money or to introduce us to like a key talent that we needed to hire at the time. And that was only possible due to this frequent kind of communication with them.
Well, speaking of talent, Craig, you partnered with Robert Downey Jr. on Happy. Can you touch a little bit on why some companies may or may not want to work with a celebrity?
Wow. Well, let me unpack that a little bit. So I'm very fortunate because Robert's awesome. He's a partner. So I think in the case of some companies, they work with quote unquote talent. And going back to what I said before about like labeling and creating distance, when you have the talent, that's very transactional, right? So sometimes I've seen, and just as a little background, like I've been a recipient of capital and a provider of capital, and I've just, I'm old, right? So I've seen some, the technical term is shit. I've seen some shit. So when I see companies, they're like, yeah, we have this celebrity. And like as soon as they start saying they're a celebrity or they're the talent, it's already very transactional. So in the case of Robert, we were introduced by a mutual friend. It's hard to believe that I actually had someone in my life who would be tight with him because, yeah. So I'm not, I'm from New Jersey. Like, I don't know. I'm like a fish out of water. So got introduced to Robert. I very politely told him no disrespect, but when my son was a teenager, I'd seen some Marvel movies. But other than that, I don't know anything about you, which I think was kind of interesting for him. And what I learned a lot. He's obsessed with coffee. If you give him 5 different coffees, he can rank order them by altitude from which the beans come. He's a super taster. So he's really, really, I can't stress really enough, into coffee. So I think the thing for us was we had this authentic, a word that gets abused, I think, a little bit, connection with mutual people. And then the world kept getting smaller and smaller. And believe it or not, the first time we talked, I had this weird guitar next to my desk. And he went, is that a whatever guitar? For those of you who know guitars, it's a Steinberger guitar. It's a very strange guitar. And I'm like, yes? Like, how do you know that? And next thing you know, we went down these musical rabbit holes for hours and we were singing esoteric Elvis Costello lyrics to one another, which was unexpected, I think, for the two of us. So our first phone call was 3 hours and 40 minutes. Wow. And it just never stopped. And this is several years ago. So we became, I don't want to overstate something, but like we kind of became friends. He was just with me in Montclair, New Jersey for a couple of days, Sunday, Monday, hanging. So he's really in it. And I think that's the key. Like if you're going to partner with somebody, it doesn't matter if they're a celebrity, if they're a business celebrity. Oh, I want this person because their resume is so hot. Like, wow. You got to make sure it's legit and they're really in it for all the right reasons. And we don't have any kind of stuff where it's like, oh, I will post 4 times a year and I will do, it's like there's nothing like that. And I've seen those because I'm involved with some things like that as an investor. And I'm like, ugh, it's a little cringy and I don't think those work out as well.
Right, it's passion versus PR at the end
100%. Like there's some basic stuff you got to do, right? It's like this combination of poetry and plumbing. Like you got to do some of the basic stuff. But if you don't get the magic part right, forget it. And the other thing, with Robert, we were talking one day, and my bride was behind me. We were FaceTiming, And he just said, not everybody's happy. Like, I know what we're doing and why we're doing it and how we're doing it, but like, what can we do about that? It's really great. We trademarked the word happy. It's an R with a circle. It's pretty wild. And he's like, well, what can we do about that? And I literally turned around, my bride's a PhD in clinical psychology, and I'm like, and by the way, I'm her complete practice, if you can't tell. I keep her extremely busy. And I said, honey, who's doing something awesome at scale in mental health? And she's like, NAMI. I'm like, what's a NAMI? Downey's like, what's a NAMI? National Alliance on Mental Illness. So long story short, we teamed up with NAMI. It's the largest grassroots mental health organization. It's incredible. Like, if you have I don't want to activate everybody's phone, but if I were to say, hey, SIRI, I feel depressed, NAMI shows up. It's baked into the iPhone and the health app, and the stats are very sad. I don't want to bring anybody down. We had a rough day, some of us, yesterday. But yeah, suicide when I was a kid, that wasn't on the charts for what was damaging for kids. It used to be auto accidents and leukemia. Now it's handguns and suicide are the 1 and 2 killers in rank order for teenagers. So, and 1 in 5 adults have some form of like DSM-4 mental illness, not like, oh, I'm sad, I didn't care for political happenings. That's real, not minimizing, but yeah, this is real stuff. So we want to do something special. So we partner with NAMI, and Downey and I were talking about it, and we're like, well, what can we do to sort of reimagine the relationship between entrepreneurship and philanthropy? Because we didn't want to do anything performative. Like, January is dry January. Like, every month now has a theme, right? It's Earth Month. Guess what? Every second is Earth Month. It's Pride Month. Well, guess what? If you're LGBTQ+, every second is Pride second for you. So we didn't want to do something performative and bullshitty. So we gave NAMI a piece of the company. So they're an equity stakeholder from day 0. And the more we spoke with them, we learned that the number one thing they hear from people is, oh my God, if only I known about you sooner. Because they really do save lives. They started 988, which is the 911 for mental health. 10 million calls last year. Like, this is serious stuff. This is like more people die from mental health related things than died from COVID. It's a real big deal. So they told us this, like, people say, if only we'd known about you sooner. And we said, well, that's an awareness issue. What if we put information about NAMI on every pack with a QR code and toll-free numbers? And anyway, we did. It's pretty cool. So yeah, it goes back to authenticity and like really giving a shit and walking the walk and talking the talk with people that feel the same way you do. That's the whole magic.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the full circle, right? At the end of the day, you don't care that you just have a nonprofit or that you just have a celebrity. You're making them a part of the actual company and making them make a difference, which is the most beautiful thing that I've heard, right? One part that I want to talk about entrepreneurship is that it is a roller coaster journey, right? So Shiri, can you remember a time where you were at a low, and what inspired you to keep going?
Yeah, I mean, lots of moments like that, but one in particular that comes to mind was, I guess at this point it's 2.5 years ago, it was Q2 22, and I'm sure everyone remembers inflation going crazy and the Ukraine-Russia war and interest rates and all of that, all the things that affected macroeconomic conditions that really made outside capital just kind of dry up overnight, essentially. And we were right in the middle, well, actually close to the end of closing a really important financing round. And we were counting on that round to launch our East Coast operations. We had already invested a whole bunch of capital into building out a new facility and a new team. And all of a sudden, one of our lead investors decided to pull out because of the war. They were based in Europe. It really affected a bunch of issues with them. And it had nothing to do with us or the team. It's just what happened. And we had to suddenly pivot very, very fast. And to be frank, we didn't see a way out. And we didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. But what we did do is essentially just focus on ourselves, focus on what we could change, and kind of like that next right decision, and focus on making incremental improvements everywhere that we could. And after some time, we were able to rack up enough small wins where it made a difference, and we were able to make it through a really tough couple of years where we didn't have the capital we thought we needed, and be successful in spite of that, and just have a stronger foundation.
It truly is a journey, and I could talk to each one of you all day long, but unfortunately I'm being told to wrap because we have 40 seconds left on the clock. So I hope you guys enjoyed this panel about the founder journey from the vision to the finish line, and thanks so much for joining us today.